Okay, this is our stage 22 guide. We'll start off with hike, or hoke being used with a noun. If I have a sentence like this, wir est bonus, we translate it as the man is good. However, if I use hike to attach to wir, I have this man is good. So using hike with a noun places emphasis on that person. This man, this woman, this whatever you're talking about. Next, we have use of the infinitive as a complement to a verb. Verbs like volo, nolo, necesse est, decorum est really need an infinitive to complete the thought. For example, if I have volo, I want, that doesn't make sense unless I give it an infinitive, I want to love. Nolo, I do not want to love. It is necessary to love. It is fitting to love. So anytime that I use an infinitive to complete the thought, like I do with volo, nolo, necesse est, decorum est, we call that a complementary infinitive. So it complements the verb, the main verb of the sentence. Identifying tenses shouldn't be new to us. We have the present, the imperfect, the perfect, and the pluperfect tenses. This is the chart that we've used to help us identify those. No marker, no clue is present tense. BA or EA or ERA with no clue is imperfect tense. That's our was or were. Perfect is no marker, but it does have SUVX with a macron over the vowel as a clue. Pluperfect uses ERA and also should have a clue SUVX or macron. Now translating those, I need to look to see if there is a marker or clue. Nope. So I have a mot. It's all blue. There's nothing else in it. He loves. That's present tense. A bot. I have green in there. That is a marker, the BA. So I have he was loving. You can see that was is green as well. That BA equals was. The green equals the green. For the perfect tense, I have a marker, the red V. Amal wit. He loved. The red on the ED represents that marker, V. So if I get a marker, I'm going to translate it as he loved or he whatever past tense. Pluperfect has red, that's the marker, and green. I'm sorry, red, which is the clue. Green, that's the marker. The V over on the right-hand side is red, ED, loved. The green is had. So color coordination there, the green equals the green on the right-hand side. Shouldn't have a problem identifying tenses. Identifying cases, especially the third declension. They're going to kind of try to catch you with the third declension and the vocative on this test. So make sure that you go over the third declension endings and the vocative endings. Third declension will be defined like this. Mons montis, the IS is what makes it third declension. Masculine mountain. The endings are nominative mons and montis, genitive montis and montum, dative monti and montibus, accusative montem montes, ablative monte, and montibus. If I were asking for the vocative, it's the same as the nominative. The only case that it's not the same as the nominative is in the second declension ending US. So here we have first declension puella becomes puella in the vocative, same as the nominative. Amicus becomes amique, it has that E, US changed to an E. That's the tricky one on the vocative. Mons becomes mons. So the nominative and the vocative are pretty much the same, except for when you have that amicus, when you have that second declension that ends in US, that will become an E in the vocative. Next, we have identifying yes or no questions and their expected responses. Here I have nay, no nay, and noom. Nay expects a yes or no answer. Wella nay s, you're not sure. Is that a girl? No nay expects a positive answer. That's a girl, isn't it? Noom expects a negative answer. That's not a girl, is it? So yes or no, positive, negative. Nay, yes or no, no nay, positive, noom, negative answers expected. Imperative commands, especially those second conjugations, they're kind of tricky to look at. We start off with the first, second, third, and fourth conjugation infinitives. To create the command, instead of to love, to create just love as a command, we're going to take off the RE of the first, the second, and the fourth. We're going to take the ERE off of the third. Now I have commands. These are called imperatives. I'm saying love, continue, say, fortify. I'm making a command. Now to make those plural, I'm going to add te to the first, second, and fourth. I'm going to add ite to the third. Here I've made it a plural command. Now we've seen lots of the first amantes. We've seen a lot of the thirds and fourths, the dikites, the munites. We haven't seen a whole bunch of the second, and they look kind of strange, so make sure you're aware of those. Adjectives as positives, comparatives, and superlatives. Hopefully we're good with those. Here's an example of the second declension, first declension adjective, lightus, that's positive. Lightior, that's the comparative form of the adjective. Lightissimus, superlative form. As an adverb, lightus becomes lighte, lightius for the comparative, lightissime for the superlative adverb. So top are adjectives, bottom are adverbs. When I switch over to the third declension adjective, brevis, it follows the same pattern once it gets past the positive form. Brevis becomes brevitor in the verbal form, but then the comparatives follow the same pattern that the first and second declension adjective did. So what I have to remember here is that the third declension and then is are going to go to iter when they turn into adverbs. Other than that, they follow the same pattern. Translating them, lightus is happy, lightior is happior. Usually going to have a than with that, a qualm or some kind of comparison. Lightissimus is happiest. Going to the adverbs, lighte is happily, ly is what changes it. Lightius is more happily, and lightissime is very or most happily. Dative with a special verb, or dative used as an object of a special verb. We do have verbs that take datives as the direct objects instead of the accusative. On the top here I have puellon, the accusative that goes with the mot. He loves the girl. However, we approach things in the dative. So he approaches the girl. We have to change girl to the dative. He favors the girl. Again, Follett takes the dative. So I would use the dative puelli as well. So make sure that you remember the words that are going to take the dative as their objects. That includes the necessity est, the decorum est, etc. Deponents using the accusative, those are those perfect active participles that are going to use the accusative as their objects. So here I have domum ingressus, having entered the house. Ingressus is using domum, the accusative, as its object. That's what deponents with an object looks like. Next we have participles. You need to know the difference between present active, perfect passive, and perfect active participles. Here is a chart for you. Present active participles are going to end in ns and tis. They're part of the third declension, and we translate those as ing. Perfect active participles are going to have usa, They're translated as having plus the ed form, having loved, and they're part of the first and second declension. Perfect passive are going to be usa, translated having been loved, and they are also part of that first and second declension. Here's what they would look like. Amo becomes amans, amantis. We translate that as loving. Percatus, having prayed. Dictus should also be having been said. The big difference here is remembering that the perfect actives are specific words. Okay, I'll give you a list of those here in a second. Special genitive use, we have three types: possession, description, and quantity. Possession tells me about ownership. Here we have conus puelli, the girl's dog. She owns the dog. Puelli is in the genitive. Okay, we also have description. That's a fact about something, the dog, whatever. Here we have a man of dignity. Dignity is in the genitive. Quantity tells me the group, what group it comes from. One of the boys. Of the boys. That's the group that one came from. Best way to do this is if it deals with numbers, it's quantity. If it deals with a description or a quality, it's description. And if it deals with neither one, then you have ownership. Ablative of agent, the ob with the passive voice. That's really a clue that you're dealing with a perfect passive participle if you get an or an ob with it. Here I have ob puero as the ablative of agent. Amantis is passive. I know it's passive because ob puero tells me who did it. Ob plus a noun next to one of these participles. You're not sure whether it's active or passive. If it's ob something, it's going to be passive. Next, we have distinguishing translations between perfect active and perfect passive participles. The key word in translating these two is going to be been. I put it in blue over here with a modest. The active peccatus, that's a perfect active participle, having prayed. Having prayed. Passive, montus, perfect passive participle, having loved is also used over here, but I used the word been to distinguish it between the active and the passive. So having been loved is our passive form. Describe in Latin the characters bulbus, gutta, latro, modestus, strithio, carin, rubria, that should be IA, sticks, and wilbia and defixio. You're going to have to describe, they're going to give you a description in Latin of one of these characters or one of these items from the story, and you're going to have to match it with the item itself. So basically you just have to remember who Bulbus was. Remember, he's the guy that loved Wilbia before Modestus does. His buddy is Gutta. Gutta's the guy that Bulbus, he makes him put on the dress and go in the fountain with him. And he kind of helps him trick Modestus. Latro, that's the father of Wilbia. He owns the shop that they're going into. Modestus, of course, he's a Roman soldier that steps in on Bulbus's woman. Strithio is Modestus's lackey. That's his friend that kind of hangs around, a little smarter than he is. But Chiron, that's a guy who rows in the river Styx, which is in the underworld. Rubria, should be IA. She is the friend of Wilbia who helps her wash dishes. Styx is a river in the underworld. Wilbia is the attractive woman in this story. She's kind of torn between Bulbus and Modestus. We all know that she should be in love with Bulbus. He's a much better guy. Defixio is a cursed tablet. So we would write somebody's name and some kind of bad curse on something on the defixio, and we throw it in. Latin vocab, you're going to get defixio. Of course, that is our curse tablet. Deicido is to fall in. Exanimatus is unconscious. Ademo, to take away something. Sualitor is sweetly, par is equal. Edox is audacity, courage. Feracitor is ferocious. Crudelis is cruel. English vocab. You have prudent, which means wise, minimize, make too little of, admonished, warned. If you give somebody a warning. Inevitable is something that's unavoidable. Incipient is the initial response of something. Dire is dreadful. Distinction is disagreeable. Verbose is wordy. Deception is like fraud, deception, deceiving, lying. Hostility is if you have bad thoughts or ill will towards something. Perfect actives that you're going to have: ingressus, egressus, locutus, percatus, adeptus, and secutus. Those are the perfect actives that you're going to have. You're going to have entering, leaving, having entered, having left, having said, having prayed, having snatched, having followed. Again, going back to characters, you're going to have who said it. They're going to give you some quotations from the story. You have to figure out who said what. Bulbus, think about the things that he says, who he is, and who he's saying them to. Rubia, same thing. Wilbia, same thing. Gutta, Modestus. So for Bulbus, think about, he doesn't really have a huge role in the story. He kind of goes along with Wilbia and trying to get her back from Modestus. It's more about his Bulbus versus Modestus in the story. What are some of the things that he says to Modestus, to Rubia, to Wilbia, etc. Rubia, very minor character. She's hanging out with Wilbia. Gutta, even more minor character. He's a buddy of Bulbus. My favorite part's whenever Bulbus makes him dress up as a girl. Not that that's ever happened to me before. Modestus is kind of the main central character in this. Well, he versus Bulbus, I guess. He's the soldier that kind of runs around and trying to prove that he's all brave and everything, but every time we turn around, he's either sucker punching somebody or hiding from them. Not sure. And that brings us to the cultural section. What is the name for the Latin term of a course tablet? It's the defixio. From what were the tablets made? Usually they were made of pewter. How would one go about cursing someone using the tablet? Well, the first thing that you would do is put someone's name on it so that the god would know which person you're trying to curse. And then you would put all kinds of bad thoughts about this person, and then you would throw it into the fountain or to the well, and, well, if you were lucky, the god would hear your prayer and take care of your business. Why were some tablets written backwards? Well, apparently it was kind of a self-indulgent way of making something more elaborate. Or possibly, in case somebody picked it up, it would be harder to read. That's pretty much all for the cultural stuff. What are participles? There's a section on here where you're going to have to tell me, where do they come from? Where do participles come? Well, they come from verbs. And what tense are they? Well, you can have a present tense. You can have perfect tense. What voices go with these tenses? Well, you can have a passive voice. You can have an active voice. And be able to describe those kinds of things. How do you translate them? You translate the present active with ing. You translate the perfect passive with having been ed, and then you translate the perfect active as having ed. You're also going to have a description of how to use the genitive. They're going to ask you what is associated with possession. Oh, well, that's ownership. Quantity, from which number or group of the noun comes from. Description gives a fact about a person. And then you're also going to have examples that you'll have to go through for each one of those. If you can answer these 6 questions right here, that's 6 really easy points on your test. Let's do some practice here. Just looking at words, we should be able to determine whether it's perfect active, present active, or perfect passive. Here I have perfect active for A, have perfect passive for B, and present active for C. Here are your answers. Just by looking at the ones that are on here, you should be able to determine the letter C, because it has that NT, which equals ing for our present active participle. The 2 B's, 1, 2, 3, 4 B's, you just have to remember that those are not deponents. And the A's, I'm sorry, that number 10 is wrong. There you go. The 2 A's, you have to remember, are deponents, so they're perfect active participles. Here are 5 examples of genitives. You need to determine whether it's genitive possession, quantity, or description. Here are your answers. Numerous, that's a number word. Remember, I told you if it has to do with numbers, it's probably quantity. Number 2 is ownership. The cats belong to the Aquarius. Number 3, a little tricky because not enough has to do with number, so I get a quantity. 4 is a description of man, so I get description. And then 5 is ownership, once again. Here's some multiple choice things, some of the same format that you'll see on your test. Here are the answers, but I want to show you a couple of clues that could help you get some of these right. With number 1, when I see the ob rege next to wileratus, I know that that is a perfect passive participle because it has that agent, that ob plus the noun. If I can remember that perfect passive uses having been, then this is an easy answer, having been wounded. Number 2, I have a perfect participle, and then to the left of it, I have some accusatives without any prepositions. That means that I probably have accusative subjects of a deponent. If I can remember now that that makes it active, deponents are active, and I remember that translating it as having said as a perfect passive, I'm in good shape. Number 3, NT equals ing. I'm finished. Number 4, I have to ask myself, wakatai, is that a deponent? Is that perfect active? Or is it regular? Is it a perfect passive? If it is a perfect passive, then I need that ah word that we've had up at number 1. Perfect passives are going to use the ablative of agent, ah or ob plus the noun. Number 5, I have a perfect active participle. Perfect actives take accusatives, so that's why I chose A.